After just one preseason game with the Detroit Pistons rookie Ron Holland looked pretty impressive, Detroit Pistons fans are already calling for him to be a part of the rotation game one of the regular season. But how realistic is that for Ron Holland? We'll talk about all that and break it down in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. In today's episode, I want to talk about the team's defense that we saw in the first game of the preseason. And also I want to talk about what we should be expecting to see from Cade Cunningham in preseason before the regular season gets started. But I want to start with Ron Holland and whether he should be a part of the rotation when this season starts. So obviously the Pistons won their first game against the Milwaukee Bucks, their first game of preseason, They won by 33 points. Now, again, it was the preseason, the Bucks stopped playing their starters at the end of the first half. I don't think they played any of their main guys at all in the second half. So take that for what you will. Obviously, winning in the preseason doesn't really matter. It has no real impact at all. That's not what matters. So don't need to read into that. However, in this game, Ron Holland did play 26 minutes. He stuffed the stat sheet. He had 10 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He also had a steal and a block to go with it. He was incredibly energetic. He was impactful on the defensive end, and most notably in the first half, when the Pistons started off pretty slow on both ends of the floor. It kind of took a turn for good reasons when Ron Holland and Isaiah Stewart came into the game in mid-first quarter, especially at the beginning of the second quarter. They were part of it, turning around the energy and really getting the Pistons competitive in that first half. So it was an impressive game from the Pistons' young rookie, Ron Holland. However, after just one game, obviously, it has Pistons fans, a lot of Pistons fans I've seen, saying, will Ron Holland be in the rotation? I've also seen quite a bit of Pistons fans say Ron Holland should be in the rotation to start the season off. So I want to just talk about how realistic that is for Ron Holland to be a part of the rotation when the regular season starts. I want to start this by saying the same thing I said at the beginning of the last episode. I need everyone to understand this. It is the preseason. Do not take too many grand takeaways from the preseason. You got to be careful what you attach a lot of substance to and what you don't attach to. I mean, we've all seen in preseason, especially as Pistons fans, you guys have seen over the last 10 years, something happened in the preseason, things look a certain way in the preseason, then they don't look that way in the regular season starts. A player plays this way, doesn't play that way in the We've seen it every single year. So I'm not saying not to take anything away from preseason, but let's not take too big of takeaways or make too much of any one thing. Don't make anything too low and don't make anything too high. With that said, the first thing is when it comes to Ron Holland being a part of the rotation, whether Asar Thompson is cleared to play is going to play a big part in whether he's in the rotation or not. If Asar is not clear to play by the time the regular season starts, I do think Ron Holland will be a part of the rotation because they'll need an athletic wing that could bring it defensively and be tenacious and be active on the boards and just do all those kind of things that Ron Holland did in that first game and what they need from Asar Thompson when he returns. So if Asar Thompson is not cleared and he's not playing at the beginning of the regular season, I do think that will clear a pathway for Ron Holland to be a part of the rotation and give him a chance to soak up those minutes, which we talked about, I believe, last week on Locked On Pistons as well. That's first. Second, I'm going to bring up this tweet, and it's really a graphic, but he tweeted it out. This is from the Twitter account is called Data Driven Pistons Fan. I want to make sure I correctly shouted that out. But he every game posts the Pistons rotation, how it was broken down. So I have it up on the screen, but I'm going to break it down for you guys listening on the podcast. This first half is what you need to pay attention to. Anything after the first half, I don't really care about, and I don't think is much importance. But just look at the first half. In the first half, the Detroit Pistons had just 8 players play in that first half. They had Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Tim Hardaway Jr., Simone Fontecchio, Jalen Duren, Malik Beasley, Ron Holland, and Isaiah Stewart play in this first half. Now, JB Bickerstaff has said that he's going to test out the rotation throughout preseason, that he's going to test out different things. He's going to test out different lineups. That's fair. I wonder how much he really is going to test it out, because I don't know outside of this, with the players who are not playing right now, and Tobias and Asar Thompson, how much more different you could get with the players at your expense. So I'm interested to see how much that changes. But my point in looking at this is that you see that they ran an 8-man rotation, and you see the type of minutes and how they staggered them. They had Ron Holland coming in around the 6-minute mark. We talked about yesterday how they staggered Cade and Jay and Ivy really well. But I also talked with Locked On Cavs host Danny Cunningham, and he's told me that JB Bickerstaff does not go deeper than 9 men. I said this on the last podcast. I do not expect them to go 10 deep. I expect them to have a 9-man rotation. So with Tobias Harris and Asar Thompson out, they had an 8-man rotation. Now, Tobias and Asar Thompson both will be in the rotation when they return. We assume and we like to hope that they both will be back as soon as possible. But just when they are both healthy, we all know that they will be in the rotation, taking up a ton of minutes. And if you add those two to this rotation, you will see a 10-man rotation. That's something that JB Bickerstaff just simply does not do. So that means someone that played in that first half is not going to play. And that's not even including guys that maybe some fans would like to see play, like a Marcus Sasser, who was not a part of that first half rotation. So you're adding 2 guys to an 8-man rotation that gets you to 10. Someone has to just not play. And it's not going to be Cade, obviously. It's not going to be Jaden. It's not going to be Simone Fontecchio. It's not going to be Jalen Duren. It's not going to be Malik Beasley. And it's not going to be Isaiah Stewart. So you got 6 guys at that point. It's not going to be Asar Thompson. And it's not going to be Tobias Harris. So now you're at 8. The 2 guys I think that are at the risk of not being a part of this rotation in the regular season is Tim Hardaway Jr. and Ron Holland. So now that I've pulled up the rotation on the screen for those of you guys watching, just so I could showcase that they played an 8-man rotation in the first half. We can now take that off the screen. So with that said, who would be the one to lose minutes, Tim Hardaway Jr. or Ron Holland? And this is the tough thing with having to analyze or put together, I should say, your rotation. Because sometimes it's not just about putting out the best players, even though I would say that there's people that would believe Tim Hardaway Jr. at this point is better than rookie Ron Holland. I know some people may push back against that after one game, but that's a first game overreaction. It's a preseason game. Let's not do too crazy overreactions. But my point is, when you're putting together a rotation, it has to make sense. So the reason why I say that is if Ron Holland is in your rotation where Asar Thompson returns, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how you would craft lineups around having both Ron Holland and Asar Thompson in the lineup with Jalen Duren. How are you putting lineups together with all 3 of those guys in the rotation? That's 1. And 2, you brought Tim Hardaway Jr. in because he's a veteran and he's a spacer. He is a shooter. He's going to have gravity. Even when he's missing, he's going to have gravity as a spacer. Now, again, I know he had a bad first game in preseason, so I know everyone's already done wanting to see him. Everyone wants to have the first game overreactions. But Tim Hardaway Jr. was brought in to space the floor out. We heard all offseason how they really prioritize spacing. So for me, at this point, I think it's just going to be hard to see how Ron Holland can get rotation minutes when Asar Thompson and Tobias Harris are healthy. Now, again, if Asar's out, I think Ron will get those minutes. However, if Asar returns and Tobias is healthy, it's hard for me to see where Ron Holland is getting minutes because I don't believe they're just going to sit Tim Hardaway Jr. He started this game. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to start. That's not my point. My point is I think it's pretty clear through what Trajan said throughout the offseason and the immediate actions of JB Bickerstaff. It could change throughout preseason, but the immediate actions of they really are prioritizing spacing. They want to have spacing on the basketball court. With Tim Hardaway Jr., Simone Fontecchio, Malik Beasley, they want to have shooting. They want to give Jane Ivey and Cade Cunningham adequate spacing. And it would be harder to do that if the veteran that you just acquired in the offseason that provides that, you are benching in favor of a rookie that, yes, while it does some fun things, has some clear weaknesses that include spacing and gravity. So I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm, not to be excited about Ron Holland. He did fun things in the first game. You absolutely should be excited about Ron Holland. You should absolutely be excited by his future. And if Asar Thompson is not ready to play or is not cleared protocol, whatever's going on, then yes, he's going to get minutes. And maybe he plays so well that you have to just sit Tim Hardaway Jr., or maybe you're forced into going to 10-man rotation. However, history suggests that JB is not going to go 10 deep. He is going to go with a 9-man rotation. And based off everything we heard in the offseason, and based off of the fact that Cade and Ivy need spacing, I just find it hard to believe that they're going to bench the veteran that they brought in to provide that spacing for Ron Holland. I find it hard to believe, and that's not an indictment on Ron Holland. That's just simply how you need to craft a lineup. They want spacing on the floor. It's going to be tough for me to see them just benching Tim Hardaway Jr. And I know, again, he had a bad first game of preseason. This is a guy who's been in the league for years. They know he's a shooter. One preseason game, I know will cause a lot of fans to overreact, but I promise you it's not causing JP Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon to overreact. Like, you should not be overreacting to one game. That doesn't mean Tim Hardaway Jr. is amazing. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but he's going to be a shooter. He can shoot the basketball, and that's what they need out of him. That's what they need out of this roster. So I'm interested to see when those guys return, how JP handles the rotation, especially if Ron continues to play well. Does he force your hand, and how so? Who's going to be missing out on minutes then? So for me, I just think it's going to be tough to see it happening. They need THA shooting, but let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Does Ron Holland have a legit chance to crack the rotation when everyone is healthy? Let me know again in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, I want to talk about the team's defense that you saw in this first game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I've told you guys this many a times. A few years ago when betting became legal in Michigan, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to try out. I tried out FanDuel, and I have not turned back since. It's super easy to use, super self-explanatory, and most importantly, super fun to use. I even got active this past weekend. I took that plus 7.5 when it came to the Arizona Cardinals versus the San Francisco 49ers. I should have just taken the money line, taken them outright, because they did end up beating the San Francisco 49ers, but I did take that plus 7.5 that FanDuel gave me and got out a couple bucks there. So you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. Again, that's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So the Pistons defense got a lot of talk. There's a lot of people talking about the Detroit Pistons defense after the first game of preseason, and for good reason. A lot of guys were active, especially in that first half. I think a lot of the takeaways are from that first half because, again, like I said, the Milwaukee Bucks did not play anyone meaningful in the second half. The Pistons played some of their guys at the beginning of the third quarter, but then kind of sat the rest of their guys and got in the likes of Dennis Jenkins, Wendell Moore Jr. We even saw Marcus Sasser get in, Tosan get in, Paul Reed get in. So the second half, I'm not taking much of anything away from it outside the fact that Marcus Sasser did look good. He did look good. He had 12 points and 9 assists. So Marcus Sasser played well in the second half, but again, it was against a bunch of, I don't want to disrespect the players on the Bucks that played, but I think everyone gets where I'm getting at there. But Marcus Sasser did play well. Outside of that, I'm not taking much of anything at all away from that second half. So it's all about the first half. And defensively, these were my thoughts from the first half. So there's 2 players that jumped off, or I guess I should say 3. There's 3 players that jumped off the screen to me defensively for the Detroit Pistons in the first half of the first preseason game. And I'm sorry I have to say this again, but I'm going to keep reiterating this over and over and over again. It is preseason. So you don't want to take too big of takeaways. Even right now, me talking about their defense, things could change as soon as the regular season starts. That's just how it goes in the NBA. That's how it goes across all sports in the preseason, okay? This is how it goes. But from what we have seen, I will say, there's 3 players that did jump off the screen. The first person was Ron Holland. We just talked about in the first segment. Ron Holland came into the game immediately with energy, with physicality, got into guys defensively, was active off ball, was active on the glass, was just making plays on the defensive end of the floor. He had that one obvious highlight play defensively when he checked. I forget exactly who it was at the top of the key really I think it was DeLon Wright, got really into his grill, picked his pocket, and took it for an easy layup on a fast break. When he came into the game in that second quarter, the Pistons were or in the first quarter, the Pistons were really struggling. They were getting blown out by the Bucks, and him and Isaiah Stewart came into the game, and they absolutely turned around the energy and the defensive side of the ball. So that was number one. What Ryan Holland did was pretty impressive. Despite that, I don't want to put heavy expectations on him defensively because most rookies are not that good defensively. Asar Thompson was an exception. Maybe Ron Holland is also an exception, but I think it would be unfair to put those kind of expectations on Ron Holland, an 18, 19-year-old rookie coming into the league. But first game, jumped off the page defensively. The second player is Isaiah Stewart. Like I just mentioned, when him and Ron Holland came into the game in that first quarter, halfway into that first quarter, everything just changed defensively. And Isaiah Stewart at the 5, I know we're talking about defense, but offensively, it just looked so much more smooth, so much more spacing on the floor. Looked like he was playing the right position. It just looked so much more smooth. And then defensively, you really saw what Isaiah Stewart brings to the table defensively for the Detroit Pistons. He wasn't stuffing the stat sheet with like 5 blocks. He wasn't stuffing the stat sheet with like 20 rebounds or anything in his limited minutes. It's nothing like that. He's just in the right spots defensively. He's contesting shots. He's being physical with guys. He's making guys uncomfortable. He's boxing guys out. Like Isaiah Stewart just plays the right way defensively. He also makes some impact plays. We've seen him do it the past few years. Didn't make like crazy impact plays in this first preseason game. But when he did play, the team just looked a lot better on the defensive end because he understands his assignment. He understands the defensive game plan, and he executes it really well. He's also very versatile defensively, obviously. But we all already know about Isaiah Stewart, how good he is defensively. It just jumped off this page how as soon as he comes in, everything changed defensively. Now, Ron Holland participated in that as well. But as soon as Isaiah Stewart came into the game with Ron Holland, the team changed defensively. They just warped defensively. They were just so much better than they were the first 6 minutes of the game. And I think Isaiah Stewart played a big hand in that. And the third player that I really wanted to shout out when it came to their team defense, which I think is probably even more important than the first 2 guys that I mentioned, was Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley was a guy who has not been a very good defender throughout his career, especially this past year with Milwaukee towards the end of his time with Utah. He was not a good defender. However, he spoke about heading into training camp. He spoke about it at the open practice. He spoke about it at practices on October 1st. He spoke about before the training camp even started. There was a few quotes from him talking about how he's really motivated to show guys that he can play defense and he wants to be a two-way player for this team. That he's kind of gotten away from that, but he wants to prove that he still has that in him and he wants to provide impact on the defensive end of the floor. Now, we have seen a lot of guys say that. Like, guys say that every single year. You see people say that on numerous teams every single offseason. It's like the Carmelo Anthony hoodie video in the gym. I forget what gym it is. I don't know if it's LA Fitness. I forget what it is. But the Hoodie Mellow videos, the Ben Simmons workout videos, like you see them every single year. You hear this from guys every single year. It's like it's a tradition. You hear this kind of stuff every single year. And rarely, I would say, does it actually play out in reality. It's just a lot of talk. However, in this first game with the Pistons, in this preseason game, Malik Beasley was one of the players I thought took it just as serious as it was a regular season game. Defensively, he was getting in guys' grill. He was clapping in people's faces. He was talking trash to guys on the defensive end of the floor. Like, again, this is the first preseason game. This is now Malik's not old. He's not, incredibly old. He's like 27, 28, but he is considered a veteran at this point. Preseason doesn't really matter to guys like this. Like, he's been through many preseasons. This doesn't matter. He doesn't need to be out there. He's going to be fine. But he came out in the first preseason game, was trying to set the tone, was taking it serious, was drawing at guys. I'm sure guys in the Milwaukee Bucks were like, dude, what are you talking to me for? You were just here last year. This is the preseason. This doesn't really matter. Why are you talking to me like this? You're talking to me like we're playing for the playoffs or something. This is a preseason game. I ain't even trying. But Malik Beasley is taking it serious. He's trying to set the tone for the young team that he is now a part of. He is trying to set the tone as a veteran on this team that is full of young guys. And he did that in this first half for the Detroit Pistons. And I think if you can have a veteran who does that for your team, it's incredibly impactful. If you see a veteran like Malik Beasley, who hasn't been a good defender the last few years, turning it around and really trying hard defensively and getting in guys' faces defensively and getting physical defensively, you then get the rest of the guys to be like, oh, Malik's doing it. Why can't I? Defense is infectious, especially when it comes to, I mean, anyone can do it, but especially when it comes to like a guy like Malik Beasley or a veteran who is not known as defense, is trying to show that, hey, even I'm playing defense. You guys need to do it too. And that again, like I said, is infectious and spreads to the rest of the team. And they're like, well, if Malik can do it, I can do it too. If Malik is getting that physical, if Malik is taking it this serious, if Malik Beasley, veteran, is taking this serious the first half of a preseason game, then why aren't I taking it serious? And you saw them take up the seriousness in the second quarter, I thought. In the first half or in the first quarter, I don't think outside of Ivy, people really took it serious in that starting lineup. People weren't playing as hard. In that second quarter, thanks to a Malik Beasley, thanks to an Isaiah Stewart, thanks to an Ron Holland who came in and tried to change it defensively, guys came into that second quarter taking it serious and really trying to make the most out of each rep that they got on the floor. So I really want to commend Malik Beasley. I hope that continues into the regular season because that is something the Detroit Pistons have been missing from their veterans over the past few years. You didn't get that from Bojan. You didn't get that from Alec Burks. Those guys, I don't want to say they just flat out didn't want to be here, but they weren't operating like that. Now, I know it's just the first half of one preseason game. I get that. But just within that one preseason half, you did not see Bojan or Burks really try to set the tone defensively and really like buy into that idea of, look, I haven't been a good defender, but these young guys need to see me play defensively so we can get the most out of them defensively and really take pride in that role as a veteran. And already through one half, Malik Beasley did that in this game. I think it really showcased in that second quarter with how the rest of the team followed in their footsteps and played really well defensively against the Milwaukee Bucks. So those are three guys I really wanted to shout out about their team's defense. We'll see how the team's defense really translates throughout the rest of the preseason, and obviously when the real games actually start. But through one half, I think these guys really did a good job of setting the tone. If they can do that every night, you can maybe get the most out of this team defensively. I don't think this is a defensive roster, but when you get guys like Malik Beasley, who have not been known as a defender, trying their best defensively and setting the tone for the rest of the guys, that's how you get the most that you can out of them defensively. And that's something that JB Bickerstaff's been known for. So maybe that's something that we'll see impacted throughout the rest of the preseason and throughout the rest of the regular season. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill who jumped off the page for you guys defensively in this game versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Coming up, I want to talk about what should you be expecting to see from Cade Cunningham this preseason. So I'm a procrastinator. I wait to the last second with just about everything, and it often screws me over, especially when I'm trying to buy tickets for my favorite event, whether it's for a concert, a theater event, a sports game, whatever it is. I wait to the last second, it screws me over. I get a bad price on a ticket. I get a bad seat that I don't like. However, with Game Time, it saves people like me because you get last-minute deals all the way up again to the last minute of the event, and sometimes even after the event has already started. It absolutely saves everyone, and it's a great place to buy tickets for your favorite event. Also, one of the things I love about Game Time is that you get the view from your seat within the app. No more showing up to the event. Oh, not the greatest seats. I shouldn't have bought these seats. Now I'm upset. No, you can see right within the app whether these seats are for you. You also have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. We are just over 1,000 subscribers away from 10,000 subscribers over on YouTube. If you are listening to this podcast, if you're listening on YouTube and you have not subscribed to the podcast over on YouTube, please head over to Locked On Pistons on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to our goal of 10,000 subscribers. We want to get there by the end of the year. I need you guys' help. I really would appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. Again, I would really, really appreciate it. Cade Cunningham, I just want to address what should fans be expecting and wanting to see from Cade in this preseason. So with talking to people throughout the offseason and talking to people ahead of preseason and just covering the team over the last few years, every player attacks preseason with different goals in mind, whether it's to for example, let's see how Jane Ivey handled the first preseason game. Jane Ivey came out and wanted to treat every single possession like it was a regular season game and was taking advantage of every single rep possible and was going completely 100% full on, just taking it as serious as possible to try to work on that part of his development. That's how some players take care of it. Some veterans don't even play in preseason. Some veterans want to just play a few minutes just to get into game shape and, stay in shape, whatever, and get ready for the regular season. Some guys just don't play. Some guys use it to work on weaknesses that they have that they want to test out. There's multiple different ways of working on of how you want to attack preseason, what your goals are for preseason. For Cade Cunningham, the goals for preseason for him what we're going to see over the next few weeks are these three things. One, I think, a lot of off-the-dribble threes, take a lot of threes, whether it's catch and shoot threes. I specifically would like to be off-the-dribble threes, whether it be step-back or pull-up threes coming off pick and roll, which you saw him do quite a bit in that first quarter. In that first half, he took, I believe, 3 pull-up threes, and he took quite a bit. He took 6 threes in just 25 minutes of play. So I think that's a focus for him, to try to just use this time to get those reps out. I think you're going to see him take this time to take those reps out and using his floater. You saw him, I think, take 3 attempts on that floater that he said he's been working on this offseason. He drew a foul on one, missed the other 2, I believe. So I think he's going to use this time to work on those pull-up threes and take a lot of threes. He's going to use this time to try to focus on really getting that floater used at game speed and in game time. And also, I think he's going to use it for someone I know. I'm telling you guys this. You guys can book it. This is a player who is aware that he has started off slow over the last few years. He is aware of the talk about him starting off slow in the regular season over the last few years. So he is aware of that. He wants to correct that. And he's going to use this time in preseason to work on weaknesses and get into game shape. He's going to use this time to get into NBA regular season shape to where he can be impactful, not just on offense, but also on defense. That is a big priority that the team and him have made this offseason and for this preseason, to get into game shape to where he can be just as impactful offensively, defensively. We can give that effort defensively that we saw him give in that second quarter of this preseason game, where he was flying around. He was making every rotation. I thought his rotations in that second quarter were absolutely on money, were absolutely crisp, making plays. And something that I know Cade does, and something that I think his teammates really respect about him, and why they look at him as a leader and why so many people talk about him as a leader, he also allows his guys in the preseason to get in a groove. He wants his guys in preseason to play well, to do what they got to do to feel good heading into the regular season. A guy like Jane Ivey, let him get going. Let him get going in the preseason and feel better about himself getting into the preseason. And Jalen Duren, or Ron Holland, and Isaiah, whatever. He's going to let those guys do their thing. And I don't think you're going to see Cade. I don't think you're going to see Cade, trying to dunk on people in preseason. I don't think you're going to see him taking chances of potentially, getting roughed up in preseason or anything. I think you're just going to see him work on a lot of pull-up shooting. I think you're going to see him work on that floater. I think you're going to see him try to give more effort defensively and just get into game shape to where he doesn't have to have that slow start that he's had each of his healthy years, where the first 10 games, he's kind of, tired. It seems like he's working himself into shape. And then after the first 10 games, he takes off. He doesn't want that to happen this year. That's what he's going to do this preseason. Like I said, different guys attack preseason for different goals, whether it's to attack this area game, whatever. This is what Cade's going to do throughout preseason, I believe, with pretty good confidence. That's what he's going to do. And as long as and really, to be honest, all you want from Cade is to get through preseason healthy and to get in game shape to where you don't have the first 10 game slow start that we've seen in his rookie year and this past year for him. After the first 10 games, he takes off. You don't want that to be the case. Let's take off immediately when the regular season starts, and no excuses. No excuse. You had a healthy offseason. You're having a healthy preseason. You had all this time to get into game shape. That is the priority for Cade. That's how Cade's going to use this preseason. So that's all I care about. I think that's all Cade's going to care about. And that's all I care about. Let's see him work on the pull-up three-point shooting. use it at game speed, see if that's really improved and get ready for the regular season. Let's see him utilize that floater a ton in preseason, really rep it out so it's ready when game time starts October 23rd. And then also, let's see him give effort defensively and really get into game shape to where at the end of games, he's not gassing out at the end of the fourth quarter. He's not gassing out on defense, that he has that energy ready when the season starts to go, be that two-way impactful player that Trajan, that JB, and Cade believe he can be. So I think that's what the expectations are for him in the preseason. I don't expect him to put up crazy numbers in the preseason. That's not what his goals are. And he's going to want to let his guys get into a groove getting into the regular season. So that's what I think you're going to see from Cade and what you should expect to see from him throughout preseason. But let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill what you guys are expecting to see from Cade throughout preseason. How do you think he should attack preseason this year? Again, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Please hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Again, we are trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate it if we got there by the end of this upcoming season. So please hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out, everybody.